Welcome into the podcast. Hope everyone had a fabulous Thanksgiving. I hope the weekend was amazing for all of you. We got a lot to get into today. A lot of important stuff. We're going to talk about the used RV market. We're going to talk about snowbirds and parts and service. I know a lot of you, not all of you, but I know a lot of you snowbirds out there don't really want to think about heading down south until after Christmas, but you're going to want to pay attention because this really affects you big time right now, okay? And then number three, I'm going to make predictions about 2026. And with my track record, you're going to want to pay attention because I've been pretty spot on with all my predictions over the last 4 years. All right, so we're going to start out with the used RV market, but I have a question for you real quick. So this is a silver play button from one of my channels, and I don't know what to do with it. Some of my colleagues have told me, hey, put it in the back somewhere, wherever you're filming, just so it gives you more credibility. But the reality is it's from a channel that I do goofball stuff on. So let me know what you think I should do with this. Should I just leave it out of the whole thing, or what should I do? Let me know in the comments section. Okay. So when it comes to the used RV market here at the end of 2025, you got to recognize that there is a lot of volatility. And the volatility isn't from the market itself, it's from the actual owners of the used RVs. I'm talking about motorhomes, travel trailers, toy haulers, fifth wheel toy haulers. A lot of private sellers and folks that are even at the dealership level have gotten stubborn about pricing. And what that has done is made people go down to the lending institution they're going to get the money from and realize that, let's say you got a, and here's a good example for it. I have a gentleman that came up to me yesterday, okay, and we were just chit-chatting, shooting the stuff, and he goes, I'm buying a Class C motorhome for $40,000 from a private seller. I go, oh, fabulous, congratulations. He goes, yeah, I've got $5,000 down. I got an approval for the dollar amount, but as soon as I turned in the paperwork on what the unit was, they told me they only financed $22,000. I'm like, really? So I look it up and I start doing the math. I'm like, that kind of makes a little bit of sense just because it's more than 8 years old. And I know that a lot of the credit unions across a lot of the United States try to stay, consistent with that 6 to 7 year old unit. They will do older, but generally they want you to have more skin in the game. So when he went back to the guy that owns it, the guy that owns it was not flexible at all. The words, I've spent money on tires, I've spent money on solar, I've spent money on this, were coming out of this consumer's mouth. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody what to sell their unit for. That's not what I do, okay? I give the education, right? So if you have a unit that you've been trying to sell, and let me tell you, the used RV market is so hot right now. There are so many used RVs being sold daily. It's not even funny when they're priced correctly to the market. Okay. And you got to realize now, I understand that a lot of you are going to sit there, especially truck camper guys, and wait for the one guy that has the exact amount of extra money cash to buy your unit. But if you want to be wide open and capture 80 to 85% of consumers' attention, you have to be within the lending value of that actual unit. You have to actually be opened up to understanding that the banks and the lending institutions don't care how much money you spent on that RV. Now, unlike cars where you get to click an ad for every single option on Kelley Blue Book to add or subtract value from a car or a truck or a van or an SUV, you don't get to do that with a recreational vehicle like a toy hauler or a motorhome. Now, there are small and very few exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, the super majority of lenders are basically financing the box and the tires. And in the motorhome situation, the box, the tires, and the engine. That's it. They don't care it has an air conditioner. They don't care it has a furnace. They don't care it has a TV. They don't care that you put 2,000 watts of solar on the roof with $4,000 batteries. They don't care. And that's okay. That if look, and I completely understand why people spend the money like this to do these things. But see, I'm starting to find more and more folks are dumping their newer RV, their 2023, their 2024, because they went and spent all this money on this solar system with a big lithium battery package, thinking they could run the air conditioner 24 hours a day just off of the battery. And they come to find out it's a more of a pain in the butt than it really is made out to be on social media. Now, you spent all that money on it, and now you're expecting somebody to pay for your mistake. Totally get it. I'm not against that. I'm not for that either, but I'm not against it either. So the reality is that the used RV market really has to come back to reality when it comes to the sellers, not the buyers. The buyers are ready, willing, and able. I'm going to tell you that on the 5 used coaches I have in stock, I get between 40 and 45 inquiries a day. A priced right travel trailer on a lot goes within days. So if you haven't sold your used travel trailer within a couple of days, something's wrong with the price. Period. And this goes for dealerships too, because I'm starting to notice that there are dealerships that have started to get stubborn as well. I've noticed that there are now units that have been on RV Trader for 3 or 4 months, which isn't normal in this economy. It would be normal in 2020, 2021, 2017, 2016, but here with all the buyers that are in the market, there are more buyers for used units in the market today than there is inventory. The only reason why you haven't sold your unit is it's priced too high. Period. Okay. People are no longer going to accept the fact that, oh, there's not enough inventory, so we can jack up the price. Those days are over, especially with the economic volatility. You have one side of the world that wants to tell you the economy's perfect, and you have another side of the world that's telling you that the economy's crap. I believe it's somewhere in the middle. Okay. There's just so many things changing and revolving, it's not even funny. Now, one thing I will make sure that you do understand is that I believe, really truly believe, that the used RV market is about to make a huge change that's going to affect everybody. You're going to want to stick around for that. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in this episode. But for now, what I want to talk about next is the snowbirds, parts, service, things of that nature. This is something that most people don't really want to talk about or even focus on until after Christmas. Now, I don't blame a lot of you because you got the holidays coming up. It's super busy. I try to warn people all the time on my RV industry update videos. I try to start in September and then do it in October and then do it in November. Like, hey, pay attention because things are going to go wrong. And here's what's going on right now. I have ordered a few parts from manufacturers to basically do warranty work or do customer pay work, maybe on an older unit. And a lot of these parts are starting to get harder and harder and harder to get. And as we get into the dog days of December, January, you're going to start seeing it get harder and harder. If you haven't already gotten your rig ready for snowbird season, you want to start today. Not December 26th, not January 2nd, today. Because if there's something wrong with your rig, you want to be able to have that part available when you're about to plug in, whether you're going to Arizona, quartzsite, you're going to go to Florida, you're going to Tennessee, wherever you're going, you're going to want to make sure that you have that part available and ready to fix your rig. Now, the other part of that whole conversation is we also have to look at the availability of real, true RV technicians, okay? There are, see, this is where I get into arguments with people. So the other day, or I'm sorry, the other week, uh, I sold an adventure camper to a great couple. Okay. And the first thing she asked me was, are you okay with third party inspectors? And I go, I tell everybody this. I say, I have no problem with a third party inspection if the person is a licensed RV technician, not some jagoff that went to some 28-day course in Texas. That's, I'm sorry. I know a lot of full-time RVers, and a lot of people have, because social media and influencer and brand deals have really shrank. You've been trying to look for an income to stay as a full-time RVer. But if you've never worked as a mechanic on an RV, you've never ever actually been in a mobile position, never worked at a shop at all, you've never been around an RV dealership working on one, you don't have any business being a third party inspector. I'm sorry. You can get mad at me all you want, you can get pissed at me all you want, but that's how I feel. I feel if you're going to have a third party inspector, it needs to be a mobile technician, someone that's been in business at least 6, 7 years, that has dealt with every single brand, that doesn't have a biased positive or negative against a certain brand. And the guy that she hired was actually fabulous. Technician for 25 years, has his own mobile business that he's had for over 12 years. He's worked with just about every brand, including some old school ones. Great guy, had an amazing attitude. Gave us the list, the small list that he thought should be worked on, as well as giving them a copy. It was brilliant, symbiotic, right? So, you know, you want to make sure that you're working with the right people, especially on the snowbird side of it. Okay. Now, here's my predictions for 2026. I believe that the used RV market in 2026, when it comes to the lending side of the industry, is going to get to a point where interest rates are going to go up and down payment requirements are going to go up. Now, I don't think they're going to spike where they're going to go up 3 and 4%. But I think if your credit union today says it's 8.49 on a used travel trailer or a used toy hauler, I think that rate's going up to 8.99. And I think that, especially if it's like more than 6 or 7 years old, I truly believe that that percentage down payment from 10% down will probably go up to 15 to 20% down. And here's why. We're starting to see a lot of the lenders are starting to see that they are severely upside down in these loans. They're not the normal that we see, because we do see what I call normal kind of upside downness inside of RVs. But a lot of folks over the last 7 years, not just COVID, but right before COVID, right after COVID, are actually pretty upside down in their units. And what's going on is the banks are seeing a lot of voluntary repossessions and regular repossessions of fifth wheels and fifth wheel toy haulers. They're sending them through the auctions and they're not getting sold. And if they are getting sold, they're getting sold at a severe amount of money back of retail and wholesale book. So you're seeing a lot of stuff that will go through the auction and never sell. And that's because the range of what they actually are trying to collect on the loan versus what the unit's actually going to sell for. So I believe that's actually going to change lenders in the way they look at down payment. Period. I think down payment across the board is going to be more of a requirement, and the percentage down, I believe, is going to be more of a requirement next year. Now, I don't think you're going to have to put half down, but I think some of the minimum down payments are going to go from 10% to 15% down. I think that if your credit union required 15% down, they're probably going to start requiring 20% down. I also believe that there's going to start being a cap. I think there's going to be a hard cap starting probably mid next year, where if you're trying to buy a $10,000 travel trailer that's 7, 8 years old, they're probably going to tell you you need to pay cash or put 5 or 6 grand down. I also believe that a lot of the terms are going to get shrank at credit unions. I believe when you go make private party purchases, You're not going to get that 10, 12, 15-year term on a regular basis with a private lender compared to a dealership. Now, that leads me into my last prediction. I think actually more new RVs will sell in 2026 than they did in 2025. I believe that down payment scenario is actually going to lead people towards making new purchases at dealerships because you're getting more bang for your buck when it comes to your down payment. Okay. And what I mean by that is if you had two units, if you had a used travel trailer for $12,000 and a new travel trailer for $26,000, the used one you needed, let's say, 25 to 2,500 or $3,000 down, and your payment was like 240 a month. But you go over to the new one and you just need that same 2,500 or 3,000, but your payment's 275. You're gonna go with the older one. You're gonna go with the newer one. Most people, not all, but most people are going to go with the newer one because you're getting more technology, better bang for your buck. I also believe that my biggest prediction of 2026 is I believe all of the independents, every deal that has been announced, every deal that has been brought about, any deals in the works is going to fall apart. What I mean by that is we're going to use Brinkley RV as an example. I truly believe that Brinkley RV is not going to finish their deal with Thor and sell to Thor. And here's the reason why. If we were any closer now, what, 3 months later, almost 4 months later, if we were actually going to have a deal consummated, it would have happened right before Thanksgiving shutdown because really there's nobody in the office between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day. There are going to be some coaches built and finished, but realistically, the consistency of having work is not going to be that way. Okay. So, in reality, I don't think any of the offers or any of the deals that were in the works are going to be consummated at all. And like I said earlier, if they were going to be consummated, it would already been done. Now, I think there's a lot of motivation behind this. Okay. Number one, I think the big dog corporations like Thor, Winnebago, Forest River and Rev Group all kind of looked at it and went, okay, wait a minute. Winnebago bought Grand Design. Now all of a sudden, 5, 6, 7 years later, we have a class action lawsuit about frame failure and frame flex in the works. It's costing us a ton of money to fix these frames that are coming in. I think what happened with Lance travel trailers and Lance campers absolutely stinking and failing with Rev Group, I think those are part of the motivation. I think the other part of the motivation beyond not buying any of these independents is the fact that the cash flow of all the major corporations has taken a dive over the last 24 months. And then you look at companies like Camping World, who's losing millions and millions of dollars a month. I mean, they're having a tough time. A lot of dealerships, a lot of corporations, a lot of companies are having a tough time outside of the AI companies that, well, you can go look up the bubble on that. Okay. In reality, on the independent manufacturing side, I believe that, and I'm going to use Alliance and Brinkley as an example, I think they have begun to price themselves out of the market. So once you've reached the section that these two manufacturers have had on their MSRP pricing on their high-end vehicles, you're now having a smaller pool, a group of people that actually can qualify for the loan or pay cash for the unit. So what you're getting into is you're getting into a competition with companies and corporations that can sell things and do things for a lot less money because they have the buying power to buy stuff for less money. So I believe that Brinkley will see a major hit in how much they sell in 2026. And I think Alliance the same thing. Now, I don't necessarily think that has to do with the Brinkley leak problem or the leak problems in the showers and stuff on the Alliances. I don't think it has anything to do with that necessarily. Because if you're going to buy a unit because you think it's perfect because Nate Goldenberg said it's perfect, that's the wrong way to buy a product. If you're going to buy a Brinkley, you buy it because you like the look of it. You like the fact that, they have no waste of space. They probably have arguably one of the best lineups in fifth wheel toy haulers in the industry. I actually put them in my top 5 fifth wheel toy hauler list for 2026. So in reality, I, I believe that's not, I don't think the puncture of, oh my God, they're not perfect, isn't the one that's going to affect the sales. I think it's dollars. Because when you look over on the other side and you look at things like Palomino Columbus, they're a lot less money than a Brinkley, a lot less money than a Montana, and yet they look really good. They're put together pretty nicely. They all have their flaws, but again, you're looking at something that is a good product for a lot better price than what you're paying for a Brinkley. When you look at other fifth wheels and other big corporations like Keystone, Keystone will make a comeback. I think Keystone makes a comeback in 2026. And as far as when it comes to the Keystone Cougar and the Keystone Montana, they're only going to have to start bringing, they're going to have the ability to bring down their price compared to the two independents. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the high end fifth wheel market where there's too many brands and not enough buyers. So it's going to get very, very interesting. And let's put in a perspective that Grand Design RV is in that niche when it comes to the momentum and when it comes to some of the Solitude product that they put out there as well. So the more expensive they're getting, the less amount of people that can actually buy it. Now you're in big time competition with folks that are going to be a lot more understanding, and their homework is going to be more intense. We always used to have a saying, when somebody comes buys a $500,000 diesel pusher, they know more about that diesel pusher than the salesperson. And they're just looking for a salesperson that's not going to BS them to death about the product. The problem is that you got a lot of brainwashed people amongst the independents that want to tell people that nothing will ever go wrong with a Brinkley, nothing will ever go wrong with an Alliance, nothing will ever go along with a Grand Design, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where you start losing people. So that's going to be one of the big things. And the last prediction is I believe that interest rates will stay flat for new RVs for the entire year of 2026. Now, if you want more information on how RV loans and how RV financing works to give you a better perspective on interest rates and things, click on that playlist right there, and there's a ton of videos that'll help you out with that. Till next time, remember that RV always stands for toolkit and sense of humor.